All right? Because the only way you can be a Pan-African is to be Pan-African. Pan-Africanism is an ascension. If you are in fact a Pan-African, you've already ascended past the ego. You already ascended. You already know how to conflict resolute. You've already done all these steps. To be a Pan-African is to be on the top of your unity. Labeling other people who are clearly not Pan-African, so that his confused subscribers can associate Pan-Africanism with a bunch of ignorant-ass, xenophobic, hateful-ass continental Africans that's too afraid to go home and fix their own countries, and they rather sit in the West and they rather reap the benefits from those who fought before they got there. Labeling other people who are clearly not Pan-African, so that his confused subscribers can associate Pan-Africanism with a bunch of ignorant-ass, xenophobic, hateful-ass continental Africans that's too afraid to go home and fix their own countries, and they rather sit in the West and they rather reap the benefits from those who fought before they got there.
We need another one. Folk now. I'm hungry though. I ain't gonna lie, I can go for some fries or something, folks. I ain't gonna lie, folks. I can go for some fries or something.
Nobody should be upset when Africans or Caribbean people push back. Nobody should be upset. They definitely have to. If you don't push back, you're not going to survive. I mean, what I think is a bunch of bullies. One of the things that you're going to hear, for the most part, is when immigrants are pushing back, you're going to hear a lot of the times people talking about the civil rights movement, right? They're going to talk about things like, oh, you are here because of our civil rights movement. You are here because of what our ancestors did. Oh, if it wasn't for our ancestors, you wouldn't be here. Well, that is partly true. But you also can litigate what happened then and now. These are completely two different eras, right? And the reason this comes up is that they want to tell you that it's okay for them to insult you, but you cannot say anything back. Okay, so it's a way to put you in a corner where you can't debate, where you can be a critic, where you cannot push back. The idea is to make you feel you're being ungrateful for some sacrifice that whoever said this to you has done. Mind you, these people that will tell you this have never sacrificed for anybody, not even their own family, right? If you look at the data, some of these people can't even sacrifice for their own children, right? So now the question becomes, what is the weight of ancestral sacrifice, right? Because humans, we are multi-generational. Every group of humans come in, they do their little bit, and some of that benefit, good or bad, will transfer to the next generation, and it's expected of them to do their best. But as humans, there's also a tendency for us to discount modern era and modern success. And if I put it to you right now, that we, this generation, the last 20 years of this world, has been the richest humans have ever been. These last 20 years has been the most technologically advanced that humans have ever been. If you do this relative to inflation, this is the most prosperous group of individuals globally. Poverty levels are much lower globally. So this is the best time for humans globally. And this success has been made through the people that are working right now for the next generation of humans. I mean, I haven't even talked about the advances in medicine and science, and pharmaceuticals. This is the best, I would say the most productive group of individuals. It's our generation. We have been. Yet we don't get any credit. I mean, I'm talking about them from the Gen X's through the millennials, right? We've produced the most richest people that ever lived on this planet. This generation, these last 20 to 30 years that has been possible. Okay. Now, when you look at all of these things, and people still go back to some legislation or some bills that were passed and use those bills to take you out of an argument to make it sound like you're ungrateful, do not fall for that nonsense. It's all I'm saying. Because here's the thing: what they fail to tell you is that, fine, it's incredible, and I don't like to not give people credit for what they've done. It's incredible that the Civil Rights Act was passed. It's an act, okay? Now, this act also involved white Americans. And Seller, the New York congressman who actually wrote the bill, is a white man. Yet you don't hear Black Americans give any credit to white Americans that were involved in making these rights possible. Now, I'm not going to get deeper into what the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is. A lot of you live in America. You already know this. But I'm going to talk about what the key components are, okay? Because when you hear an act, people make it sound like there were guns blazing to make something happen. That is not true, okay? What are the main, and I itemize the main tenets of the Civil Rights Act. What did it do? Provision 1, it ended discrimination in public places, okay? We can put that in the column of desegregation, okay? Saying that we should all come together, the two races or whichever other groups were here, right? So that's what it did. It's a bill in Congress, okay? Just like Obamacare, just like all the hundreds of bills that are passed every session. This was a bill, but a very consequential bill, okay? I'm never gonna minimize the importance of this bill. But I think what us and a lot of commentators on the internet forget to talk about is they fail to see that this is just a piece of legislation, and the only time there's enforcement is if somebody violates. It doesn't mean people do not violate, okay? Because I can say that, yes, there is no discrimination officially in public places, but there are still places in this country where Black people or melanated people cannot go, okay? Ban discrimination by state and local governments. Okay, so this is now the federal system, the local system, same discrimination. Okay, so the first two tenets are still discrimination. Then school desegregation. All right, Title IV allowed people to go to school regardless of your race. You could go to a white school. All right. Now, if you think to modern times, yes, legally you can ban people from going to school based on their race. Okay, that's the law. But if you make enough money and you go to live in a certain parts of suburbia in America, you're almost guaranteed that you're going to achieve some level of segregation based on income. So these divisions are still there. All right. Then equal access to federally funded programs. Now, I mean, if you are here and you're not really interested in federal funded programs, this really does not apply. This is for people that want to do federal contracting and all kinds of things, right? The 5 is one of the biggest things. Employment discrimination, right? It prohibited employment discrimination, which meant that the subsequent bills, like the Immigration Act, allowed for people to migrate to the United States. So this is where a lot of these FBAs use as checkmate for Black immigrants. Well, if not for this, you won't be able to work here. But they wouldn't have been able to work too. So the main recipient of this bill was Black Americans and other minority groups that were present in the United States. Okay? The consequence of this is not just based on the act. I mean, the act will have some effects on it. But let's think about all the advanced countries in the world, okay? They all compete economically, every country in the world. And if there was no Immigration and Nationality Act, there would be no SpaceX. There certainly won't be no Starlink. There will be no Tesla. I believe that regardless of what happened, whether the bill was passed or not, capitalism and the free market would have forced the US government to make some immigration laws, just like Belgium has, just like the United Kingdom has. They didn't have a Civil Rights Act. Australia didn't have a Civil Rights Act. All these nations didn't have Civil Rights Act. But yet, England doesn't have a Civil Rights Act. Yet England has, and France, the most African immigrants live in England and France because they were an ex-colony, okay? So this idea that we're only here as a consequence of the Civil Rights Act is a lie, because these countries, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, have all opened their doors to immigration. And this immigration is also responsible for a lot of the success of modern America. And they're going to use this legislation that was passed for their population as a means to tell you that you can't be critical of them, and that they can call you all kinds of names, right? They can demean you, yet you have no means to push back. And you're supposed to accept this and be quiet. It's a way of dominating you. And the most painful part of this is, most of the times, the least achieving and least participants of the American economy are the people that will use this against you. The guys that are not working hard enough, the guys that are not taking advantage of these same rights that they have, equal or proportional to you. Most of them have a head start before you even show up here. Yet they want to go back to 1965, something they did not participate in, something they did not work in, as a way to corner you so that you don't have a say. And I see even those that believe they are Pan-Africans and all these other groups, they always fall back to this piece of legislation. Okay? And that is also to minimize your work. Because every one of us that works today, clocks in, clocks out, I don't care how big or small your job is, or drives Uber, pays taxes, you are still contributing equally to the progress of this nation or whichever nation you live in. And we've come to, this community seems to want to always fall back on historical prowess over modern day effort. Okay, so your college that you went to doesn't matter anymore. Your blue collar job that you have, that you go to every day, no longer matters. Doesn't mean anything. When you're a nurse and you're taking care of sick Americans, when you're a researcher and you're working in pharmaceuticals and having breakthroughs in drug and therapeutics, your work no longer matters. But a YouTuber that is using a platform that is mostly developed by immigrants, right? If you go to Palo Alto, you know, right? They have the right to tell you that you cannot be critical because some ancestors fought for civil rights. Remember, this was not a war. The Civil Rights Act was a legislation. It was like any bill that we vote for. It was only consequential because it formally ended discrimination at the federal and the state level. It doesn't mean discrimination does not exist. Whether you discriminate or not is in your heart as a person. Black people discriminate, white people discriminate. White people are racist, black people are racist. All those are at individual level. There are jobs in America today that are going to be posted for all of us to be able to apply to. But you may not get the job, maybe because you're black, right? You may not get the job, maybe because you're black. But it's a violation of Civil Rights Act. They will find a loophole to employ somebody else and say that person was equally qualified. So these laws are in place. It doesn't mean those injustices don't exist. They still do. It may not be as much, but they do. And I think it's really disingenuous for Black Americans, when there's an argument or debate, to tell Africans and Caribbean people that, hey, you are here because of us. So because you are here because of us, and it's not true. We've just proven why it's not true. When we call you booty scratcher, when we call you whatever names, when we mock your hairline, whatever we do to you, when we say the most derogatory and mean things to you, You cannot say anything back. And if you do, you are being ungrateful. This is the argument they are all trying to make. And I say bullshit to that. There is something called social identity theory. So here are some scenarios. Because people before me sacrificed, you owe me something regardless of how I treat you. Okay? I'll repeat. Because people before me sacrificed, you owe me something regardless of how I treat you. I can treat you so badly, but you still owe me something. Okay? But then meanwhile, every one of you immigrants and natives, you are working in science, technology, medicine, engineering, space exploration, countless fields. You're making sacrifices every day that the next generation of humans are going to enjoy. But then some underperforming individuals, so people that are not pulling their weight in modern times, which is a lot of these FBAs on the internet, right? Very underperforming people, like benefits pro max, right? Eating benefits to the core. These people are going, in present, they are going to look at you and say, you have to pay homage because my ancestors got this bill to pass. My ancestors got this bill to pass. What bill have you gotten to pass for the next generation of Americans? How long are you going to keep saying we was to we are? At some point, you have to look at yourself and say, this is not good enough. You know, like no other group do that. Like even if Black Americans move to Ghana, I don't look back and say, hey, we fought for independence and you're in Ghana enjoying that freedom. No Ghanaian says that. Right? It's a very dumb premise because, like I said, even if these bills were passed for your 51 million population, okay, it was passed for your 51 million population. The majority, and this is something they miss, the majority of Africa immigration into the United States started in the 90s under a new bill that introduced something called the diversity visa lottery, DV lottery as we call it. This is when a lot of Africans really started coming. This is when you're starting to see a lot more Africans. And the only requirement to get into the lottery was quota based on your country and how many of your country's representatives lived in the US. And the only minimum requirement was that you should have graduated high school. So everything that we do individually today counts. Okay, it counts. And if you're gonna get into arguments with people from other groups or other Black people because they were born somewhere or because they came from somewhere, right? Then let these conversations be about issues. I mean, pick the specific issues to talk about. When you've made these conversations about things that disparage these people, right? Then they are equally, they should be able to say mean things to you as well. That's my school of thought. I have no interest in disparaging Black Americans. Absolutely no interest. No immigrant comes to the United States to disparage Black Americans. But then when you get here, and I mean, I didn't come here at a younger age, so I don't have these experiences, but I've seen TikToks, I've seen people share their experiences. And it's not everybody, you know, like I said, I think there's a lot of generational shift into these things. And we're not going to get everybody on board or everybody perfect. There's always going to be people that are going to be at the extreme ends of everything that we talk about, right? There's going to be people that have more moderate stance, people that are indifferent, people that are like Tariq level extreme, you know, or maybe Nana level extreme. Yes, there are people like me, okay? But at the end of the day, if we don't make these debates about issues and we make it about people's features, derogatory slurs, then you are inviting these immigrants to disrespect whatever you think is sacred to you, including your Civil Rights Act. You open that Civil Rights Act to slaughter. You've made it possible for the immigrant to say whatever he wants to say to you because he needs to defend himself. Okay, he needs to defend himself. If you think you can look at a Sierra Leonean lady or a Liberian lady and call her some names, and she's not supposed to push back or speak her mind, then you're being disingenuous. Whatever you're dishing out, you should be willing to take it. Okay, so yes, they can make the conversations about delineation. We are not like you, they are not like us. Nobody cares. But when you start making thumbnails that are looking like these humans are barbarians, and showing images to disrespect them or to demean and belittle them, don't be surprised if some African fires up some YouTube channel and says all kinds of things in favor of their community. It is what it is. And I've seen some people say, well, you Africans started it. Bullshit. How many Africans are on YouTube and TikTok? A lot of us just started creating channels, you know? And these slurs they even talk about, most immigrants didn't say those slurs to your face. It was internal conversation until Godfrey's wide mouth started putting things like that on mainstream. This was just something that mostly Nigerian Americans or Nigerians said within their communities, within themselves. There's even Africans, especially Southern Africans and East Africans, that have never heard that term. This was a strongly West African thing that was said between the two groups. It's not widespread. How many people are walking around saying that word to people's faces? Nobody does that. It was something they said locally within themselves in their local languages. And I'm sure there's many more derogatory words like that that I don't know in other languages. Everybody has a slur for other people. Okay, you guys have a slur for us, we have a slur for you. Okay, for the white folks, they don't say the N-word. I don't say the N-word either. And I'm black, but I don't say the N-word. I don't use it. I don't think I have a passport to say it. Frankly, it's not a word I like. That's why I say ninja. Okay, it's not really a word that I like, so I don't really say it. But anyway, we talked on slurs. But what I'm trying to say is, one, my ancestors suffered, therefore, I automatically deserve respect. Well, and I'm saying that's not true. Okay, this reflects something called social identity theory, the tendency for people to derive part of their identity and sense of entitlement from their group's history and experiences. Right. So an example is my ancestors suffered, therefore I automatically deserve respect. If you're a man and you're not waking up to go to work, you're not a productive member of society, you're out there committing crimes, you're always impulsive, mistreating others, disrespecting others, you don't deserve respect. I don't care even if your ancestors built America. I don't care if you are the owner of the America or if you are the royal family of America. You will receive equal levels of disrespect. You have to earn this respect. And this is what Black America needs to understand. You're not just going to be respected because you're existing. You're going to be respected based on how you treat people and what you do for your communities. You can't be a bomb and expect me to respect you. Bullshit. It's not going to happen. Okay? Go get that respect from somebody else. You'll not get it from me. And this is across the board. You have to earn those respect. If you don't live up to a certain standard, your own people are not going to respect you. It's not even a nana thing. Your own regular citizens are going to look at you and say, man, you're over here committing crimes. You're over here doing this BS. I can't respect you just because you're part of a collective. There's going to be Black Americans that I respect, and they know themselves. They don't even need to ask for that respect because they know themselves. They earn that respect. And you're not going to get collective respect from the Black immigrant if you don't do things that are deemed respectable.